Hey guys, welcome back to Read Instead. Glad to have you here today. I'm Jake. We're taking it outside today because it's absolutely beautiful out. I brought my kids to the park. I brought some reading material for myself. The Old Man and the Sea. A friend of mine knew that I was, as of late, really getting into American classics, as I shared with you guys in my last video, and he gave that to me to read, so I'm appreciative of that. But today I wanted to talk to you about Farhrenheit 451. I'm going to talk about this whole novel. It's so short that I think I can do that, and hopefully this video takes less than 30 minutes. I know it's long form, but this is what I wanted to do today. I wanted to sort of flesh this novel out, dissect it, talk about it, because it's a wild ride and it's pretty cool, and I think it's deserving of your time and attention. So without further ado, Farhrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Okay, this is a futuristic novel, science fiction maybe, because it has technology that some of which we have today, some of which we don't. But I'll tell you what, I don't see how anyone could read this today. And this book was written in the 50s and not almost get an eerie feeling about how close Bradbury was to predicting where we would be as a society, not just technology-wise, but as a society, and how human beings would be interacting with one another, or the lack thereof, in the 2020s. And I think it was pretty close on the timeline, because they mentioned the year 2022 in the book as sort of a recent year that passed. So I think when he's writing this, he has in mind right around the time frame that we're in right now in the world. So let's just get right into it. This book is about a man named Montag, and society is in a state of slavery to stimulation, and slavery to constant seeking of happiness, and that's all. And the mindset is that that's the only thing that's important. And the way that has happened is because all past information has basically been removed from society. The way that they do that is shown in this book is by burning books. Anything that is written of the past, it is no longer in existence. And more so, it's illegal to have those things. It's highly, highly illegal to have those things. And if you think about it, it's not too far-fetched. If we just erased, every written record that we have today, which we could do, with fire, and then we took the internet away, after a few generations of people, we would sort of that's where we would be as a society. And any talk of past historical events would be, left up to interpretation, or left up to, maybe you believe it, maybe you don't. We don't know if it's true or not, and it's sort of referenced in this book that historical facts and the historical figures is all kind of just like folklore, you know what I mean? Montag, the main character, is a firefighter, or more appropriately, a fireman, because they don't fight fires anymore. They only make fires. They only burn things. That's what their job is. The reason why they're at this place in society is because society has learned to fireproof everything. So there's no more like accidental fires or anything like that. So the job of firemen in society is to erase any written words that are on paper. And if they find out that anybody is storing books in their home, they through technological means, they get a call and they go to those homes and they make those things disappear. So again, the story, the entire story is Montag breaking out of that that system and breaking away from society and coming to the realization that there is more to life than just being robotic and just seeking stimulation. There is virtue in thinking and discovering things and being curious and being moved by words, like many of us are today, but many of us unfortunately are not. There are a couple instances that sort of set Montag off on this journey. The first instance is that he has a neighbor, a 16-year-old girl, who proves to be someone who's sort of broken away from being a slave to being a slave to stimulation like everyone else is in society. And she's a thinker. And on his way to work, when he walks to work, she kind of just pops out from the alleyway and starts to strike up interesting and truthful conversations with him. And at first, he kind of just laughs at her when she asks, sort of deep questions. One time, she asks him, "Are you happy? Do you really know if you're happy?" And he kind of just laughs, like, "Of course I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be happy?" Another time, she's talking with him and it's raining outside, and she says to him, she says, "I like to, when it's raining like this, I love to just sit outside and open my mouth and let the raindrops fall on my tongue." And she says, "I get stimulation from that and being in nature, and that's something I love to do." And he kind of is like, "Wow, what is this girl talking about?" And then as soon as she walks away, he looks up at the sky and opens his mouth, and eventually, again, the novel starts to put Montag on this journey of wanting to break free from that slavery of robotic addiction to stimulation and happiness. I put happiness in quotations because it's really not happiness; it's just fake happiness. Or in other words, maybe it's happiness, but it's not actual joy. Another incident that has a really profound impact on Montag. He gets a call when he's at the firehouse, and they get a call that a woman is storing books in her home, and they show up at this woman's house. And while he's there, his senior officer, by the name of Beatty, who is plays a pretty vital character in the novel, he's talking to the woman because I think deep down inside they know that they're doing something really sort of heinous and cruel. They're going to burn this woman's house up because that's the penalty for having books in your house. But Beatty, his senior officer, is in the house, and as they're pouring kerosene over all the books and making a trail of kerosene out to the sidewalk where they're going to light the house on fire, he's explaining to the woman, Beatty, the senior officer, is saying to the woman, "This is your doing, this is your consequence. You knew that this was wrong, you knew that this was against the law, so it's justified in what we're doing right here." And he's kind of saying it to the woman, but he's also saying it to sort of calm the hearts of the other firemen that are there, including Montag. And as they exit the home and the kerosene is poured over everything, they're standing out on the sidewalk about to set fire to it, and the woman comes out on her front porch and she lights a match and she sets the flame herself, and she herself goes down with the house, ultimately committing suicide. In other words, she says, "I would rather die than depart from these words and these books." These two things have a really profound impact on Montag. Another main character in the book is Montag's wife. Her name is Mildred, and Mildred is as far out in her mind as you can get from which society is trying. She is the prototype for what society is trying to make human beings into. She's completely gone. She's addicted to stimulation. She's addicted to fake happiness, and the novel almost portrays her like I could only think it made the image in my mind, made me think of like a drug addict. She seemed like, you know, someone on drugs. This is obviously a big conflict for Montag, because he's not like that, and he's starting to break out of this, and he's wanting to explore life and explore, you know, he wants to follow his curiosities, and she's just like gone from it, right? So you come to the realization, it's shown to the reader that Montag has been going on these, when he goes on these runs to people's homes to burn their books and ultimately burn their houses, he's been stealing books one by one and hiding them in a vent in his home. And one night he tries to shake Mildred out of her foggy mindset and show her that he has these books, and he's trying to basically say to her, there's more, this is terrible, and he's explaining to her what he did at that woman's house, and that she lit the match and the whole house went up in flames, and she just stood there and committed suicide. And he's saying there's something to this, there's something to these books, we need to look into them, please Mildred, you know, listen to what I'm saying to you. And she's just, it's hard to get her out of that fog that she's in. And so eventually he shows her, and he starts taking these books out of the vent, and she's just like rolling her eyes, and she can't believe that he would do something so risky and so dangerous, because ultimately he could really put not just his life but her life in jeopardy. And he said, please, he's just pleading with her, please just let me read some of the words, let's sit down and let me read some of the words. And there's the scene where they're hunkered down in their kitchen, sort of trying to be out of view of maybe anybody looking in through the windows. That's sort of the dangerousness that goes along with reading. That's the place in which society is. And she doesn't come around. She doesn't come around, and she hopes that he's just going through a phase and that he'll get over it quickly. So after that, Montag remembers a meeting that he had with a man in a park before the novel begins. He comes across a man reading in a park, and the man kind of, when he notices that Montag notices him, he puts the book in his jacket as not to be seen reading, again because it's dangerous. You're shunned from society. If any normal citizens see you reading, it's like they just turn around and walk the other way, because you're doing something illegal and they don't want to be even associated with someone like that. So Montag sees this guy reading in a park, and he goes up to him, and the guy's really nervous, and basically he just says, no, I'm not here to get you in trouble, I don't want to rat you out or anything like that, but could you just read to me, and could you explain some of the words that you're reading right now? And he does. And then again you learn that this was another sort of consequential event that happened with Montag that set him off on this course of curiosity and wanting to break free from the slavery of society and the constant search for just stimulation, and really nothing beneath that, just superficial stimulation. His senior officer by the name of Beatty, that chief firefighter, comes to his house, and you can tell that Beatty is he starts to realize that Montag is sort of falling into a dark path, and he's going down a dark path, and he says he has this sit-down conversation with Beatty because Montag is called out of work sick, and because after the experience with that woman and her going up in flames with her books, he doesn't want to go back to work. So the first day he calls out sick. Beatty shows up at his house and starts to know, he knows that Montag's onto something, and he's explaining to him that I've seen other firemen go down this path, and it's a waste of time, and don't do it, and it's all just foolishness. And the thing about this character Beatty is like so intriguing to me. He is someone in society, not many people are like this, but he is someone in society that has already read everything there is to read, and he's very knowledgeable of past history and poetry and art, and he knows all these things. But in his mind, he knowingly has convinced himself that it really is foolishness and stupidity to be curious for these things. And it's amazing, the dialogue, because he'll like quote a poem. He'll quote this beautiful piece of poetry that's real and true, but then he'll have a rebuttal to it. He'll say this line, and then he'll immediately have a rebuttal to it. And the thing about Beatty is he's almost convincing in what he says. And you're on, because as a reader, you're on Montag's side the whole time, and you want him to succeed, and you really feel bad that society is in this place. But then you hear Beatty sort of give the argument as to why it's better for society to be like this, and not to think about anything, not to be thinkers, not to be curious, not to look back at history or anything like that, to just worry about being happy and happy right now. And again, he's almost convincing. That's why he's sort of it really leaves you. He's a dark character in the book. So after Montag has this meeting, he has this visit from his fire chief at his house. He remembers Faber. He remembers that man in the park, and he finds out where he lives, and he wants to go visit him. When he knocks on the door at Faber's house, Faber looks through his peephole, and he's very reluctant to let him in, and Montag assures him that he's alone and he's not acting on behalf of the fire department or anything like that, that he just has some genuine questions for him. And Faber reluctantly lets him in, and Montag just sort of vents on him, and he lets him know what he's been going through and what he's struggling with, and he lets him know that the conflict that he has being a fireman, and that he doesn't want to do what he's doing anymore. And ultimately the conversation turns into, let's be a team, since we're on the same page here, and let's try to change society. Let's try to break people out of this sense of slavery. And Faber's sort of, his reaction is like, listen, I have my books in here in my home, and I just want to be left alone. I don't go outside. I'm just a hermit. I just stay here, and I have my books, and I'm completely satisfied in that. But as the conversation continues, they agree that they're gonna sort of work as a team, and the actual plan that they come up with is that Faber asks Montag to basically infiltrate the fire department and start to plant books in some of the firefighters' homes, so their homes can be burnt down. And before he leaves, because Faber realizes that he's really having his mind troubled and conflicted, because his boss at the fire department continues to try to coerce him and show him that it's a dangerous thing, the road that he's going down. So Faber gives Montag this little earpiece that goes, it's so small it's almost invisible, and it goes into his ear. And Faber says that I'll be with you, and when he's talking to you and he's giving you these rebuttals, and he's telling you, he's trying to convince you that it's all hogwash, I'll be there in your ear to remind you that it's not. And that's how they leave. So cut to Montag's at the fire department, and all the firefighters, including Chief Beatty, are at a card table, and they're just playing a game of cards. And as they're talking, Beatty's kind of passive aggressively kind of mocking and making fun of Beatty, and just kind of saying, you're not going to go down that path, right? You're not going to go down that path. And as they're playing the game of cards, the fire bell rings, and they hop in to the truck, and lo and behold, where do they go? They end up going to Montag's house. And this is where everything sort of hits the fan, so to speak. He pulls up to his house, and he comes to the realization that his wife, Mildred, ratted him out to the fire department, and she's on her way out the door when he gets there, and she just wants nothing to do with it, and she knows that her house is going to go up in flames. And you got to remember, Faber's in his ear, and it's a chaotic moment. And Faber's saying to him, "Can you get out of there? Is there any way can you escape? Can you run away?" And while this is going on, they're kerosening his whole house. And Beatty is looking at Montag and saying, "I can't believe that you went down this path, that you had all these books, that you've been betraying society and betraying the fire department." And he said, "I don't know what's in store for you. You're going to be in big trouble, though." Basically saying to him that after we, torch your house and all your books, that you're going to be arrested, and who knows what the consequences are going to be. So Faber is trying to reassure him and keep him calm, and he's saying, "Can you get out of there? Is there any way you can get out of there?" And then Beatty realizes that he has something in his ear, because Montag is responding out loud to Faber. He's talking out loud, and Beatty knocks the thing out of his ear, crushes it, and in response to that, Montag makes a life-changing decision, and he takes the fire hose, which isn't a hose of water, but it's a hose that it's described like that shoots out liquid fire, whatever that is. So Montag takes the fire hose and he kills Beatty and the other two firefighters that are with him. And at that moment, he's basically on the run, and it turns into a scene where it's almost like you see on TV on news programs when if somebody's running from the police, there's helicopters in the sky and they film it and stuff like that. That's the scene that it turns into, and he's on the run, and he can't think of where to go, and he's trying to hide from the helicopters in the sky. And then he says, I'm gonna go to Faber's house. He journeys to Faber's house, and Faber already knows what's going on. It's public knowledge what's going on, because people can just like we can today, you can turn on your phone and look at a high-speed pursuit that's happening on the other side of the country live as it happens, right? So it's kind of the same thing, and it's amazing to think how close Bradbury was in guessing what where we would be technologically in this day and age. So he gets to Faber's house, and he's all worked up, and he doesn't really know what to do. He tells him about the earpiece, that he doesn't have it anymore. And then he starts to be very sorrowful and sorry in the fact that he potentially led the authorities to Faber's house, because they have all this sort of technology to track a criminal who's on the run. One of a piece of technology that they have is this thing called the Hound, and it's described, I guess, they say it's not robotic, but it seems as it's a half mammal, half robotic dog that has a sense of smell that's greater than any greater than any animal could have today. And they already, he knew that the Hound was already on him, this chase mechanism that the authorities have. And Faber just reassures him. He says, don't worry, we can mask your scent and do this, and I'll give you an extra pair of clothes and stuff. And Faber says to him, just go here and go there, and he basically starts to give him like geographically, tells him where to go so he can escape the authorities. And he says, I'm meeting up with another guy like me, a thinker like me, in St. Louis in a few weeks. Go here and go there and follow the river, and then when you hit the train tracks, just keep walking, and I'll meet you in St. Louis in a month, basically, is what Faber says. And they sort of bid each other goodbye. And so Montag sets out on this journey on the run. And as soon as he hits those train tracks that Faber was telling him to go to, he comes across a group of men that are huddled around a fire. And I guess the best way I could describe these men they're kind of living like hobos. I'm not using that term derogatory. It's just the best way that I can describe them. They live outside. They make fires. They have small food rations that they share with one another. But they're a team, and that's how they stay alive. But the thing with this group of men is this: they have broken away from society. And they're not slaves like everyone else is to the technology and the stimulation that everybody is enslaved to. They're actual thinkers, and they actually all have past occupations. Like one's a professor, one's an engineer, if I remember correctly. And this is where it gets really sort of beautiful and poetic. The currency that is valuable to them isn't alcohol or money or things like that you would think hobos would share with one another in order to keep living and keeping themselves alive and somewhat entertained. The thing that is precious to them is knowledge. And more specifically, words that are written down. And they actually have like pieces of paper that they throw in, and they all sort of share with one another. When Montag shows up, they had already known that the chase has been on and stuff like that, so they know who he is, so they trust him immediately. And he says that they say, "What do you have on you? What do you have on you?" And he says, "Well, I have the book of Ecclesiastes from the Bible." And they said, "Oh, that's good, that's good." Throughout the whole novel, there's this talk of a war happening. It's alluded to just a few times, not in any depth or description or anything like that. But it says, "Well, we're probably going to go to war again. We'll see what happens. We might die, we might not." And so as he's together with these thinkers, this group of men, they're far away from the city, and they can see the city, and they can see bombs start going off all over the city, and everything gets destroyed to rubble. And it gives you the sense as a reader that society needs to be rebuilt. And they basically take it upon themselves they're going to rebuild society in a different way. And they have these words, and they have this knowledge, and they have minds that are willing to think and be curious about the past and things like that, and art too. And they hold they hold art in a it's important to them, and they believe that it's beautiful and it's meaningful, and that people shouldn't be ignorant of art. And that's actually how the book ends, right there. And when we read a book like this, it leaves us asking questions, and it makes us think about what point was Bradbury trying to get across. And I think there's a few points. One is that we don't want to live in a society that is completely fixated on just constant stimulation. Stimulation after stimulation after stimulation, where we have no desire to think, We have no desire to be curious and sort of look out at the expanse and wonder things and ask important questions. It brings me back to that when Clarice, in the beginning of the book, that 16-year-old girl that asked Montag, she said, are you happy? And his response to that, and again, this is at the very beginning of the book, and he sort of journeys through, you know, and has his mind changes throughout, even more so throughout the novel. But when she first asks him this, his response is laughter. He laughs in her face. Like, why would you ask me a question like that? That's such a foolish, meaningless question. And I guess it's not. It's not. And more than that, you can take it a step further. It's like, what is real happiness? What are we getting our happiness from? Another sort of guiding principle I think that this novel portrays is the importance of not remembering, or rather remembering our past, and how detrimental it can be to not remember our past. And that's the society that is portrayed in Farhrenheit 451, a society that is completely void and ignorant of any past historical facts. You know, and it makes me think, you know, there's so many examples that we can come up with today and how we've already sort of done that. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, one of the things that comes to mind rather is, how about the Constitution and the founding documents of the United States of America, the amendments. You know, I think, if I dare say, you know, a large portion of our society today thinks of that stuff as just the same way, you know, the people in this book thought of past literature. It's like, that's foolishness. Why are we talking? They, you know, they wrote that. That was so long ago. It's so old. We're different now. We're different people, and but very few people, I think, take the time to actually really look into it and study it and really consider if it's beneficial for human beings today, and is it beneficial as for a society. You know, that's just one example. I'm sure you guys can come up with many more, but so I just gave you the whole, I mean, I left out little tiny details and stuff like that, but I really just gave you the entire story of Farhrenheit 451. I did it in good conscience because it's such a short book that I still think it's worth your time to read it, because don't be upset that I spoiled it. I just wanted to, I thought it would be appropriate to share the whole story with you, so you can make a decision for yourself if you think it's something that you'd be interested in, and if not, I hope at least the footnotes that I just gave you was interesting enough for you guys to watch this whole video. So with all that, I hope you guys have a great day. Let me know what you're reading, what you're going to read in the weeks ahead. I'll see you next time. Take care.